For your tints chart, you're going to start with white as your base and add small amounts or smidgens of your darker color to your lighter color. Now you can start by filling in this white square using your flat brush that you have. Dab off the paintbrush tool under your paper towel and you can apply that to that surface, okay? Or you can just leave it blank like I'm going to do. It's entirely up to you. The thought process behind having the white there is just so that you have something to compare your first tint of a color to. All right, so I will leave that ball in your court if you would like to do that. Now the next thing I'm going to go ahead and do is I am going to grab my small round brush. So it looks like this, it comes to a point, and I'm gonna grab a small smidgen, okay? A smidgen is a small amount of my pure color, and I'm going to add it very gradually to my white, all right? And what I'm going to do is stir it past where it's swirly and awesome, where it looks thoroughly mixed, all right? And then once I have it thoroughly mixed, I am going to do a test blob. Okay, so I am going to blob it right here. Yep, that indeed looks a little bit darker than the white. Okay, so I am going to then apply it using my flat brush. Okay, so you're always going to use your small round brush as your mixing brush, and then you're going to use your flat, like I am doing here, to apply your paint. Okay. Now one thing I'm noticing is I have a lot of water within my paintbrush, so I forgot to blot it off on my paper towel before I started, so just know that that can impact your color. Holding the paintbrush by the grip and plugging that in. All right, now for this second one, what I'm going to do is I am going to switch brushes. I'm going to go back to my small round brush, which looks like this. I am going to make sure it's washed and that I blot it off, get that excess water out of there. I'm going to grab another small amount of red, a smidgen on my brush, and I'm going to add it to the white. I'm going to mix it past it being swirly and awesome. And I am then going to test blob it. Now when I test blob it here, it looks a little bit too similar just with that one smidgen of red. So I'm going to rinse my paintbrush, I'm going to blot it on the paper towel, and I'm going to add another small amount or smidgen of red to the white. Okay, just to make it a little bit darker than that previous one. Okay, the goal is to get it a notch or two darker each time. So I'm going to go back for another smidgen and mix past it swirly and awesome. All right, test blobbing it. That looks a little bit better. Okay, so I'm going to switch paint brushes and I'm going to pick up my flat brush here, make sure that I blot it off on my paper towel, get off that water, and I'm going to apply it using the flat. Okay, because remember that flat can paint in straight lines and angles very easily. Okay. Watch your craftsmanship here and make sure you're holding your paintbrush by the grip. All right, so for that next one, which is our next tint of a color, I'm going to do the same thing I did before. I am going to make sure my paintbrush is washed. Okay, I'm going to grab a smidgen of the red, add it to the white, mix past it being swirly and awesome. I'm going to test blob it. These two look a little bit too similar, so I'm going to go back and add another smidge of red. And mix it again. So you'll notice here the paint looks swirly. Okay, I've got to keep going with my mixing. This looks good here. I do want it to be a little bit darker still, so I'm gonna go back one more time and add a little bit more red. Want it to be a little bit darker. And it looks like it is a pure color now. I'm gonna test blob it. Yep, so that's darker. All right, so I'm going to grab my flat, rinse and blot it, and then plug this in. And I think on camera that looks particularly nice. All right, now for my last tint of a color, before I approach my pure color, okay, my pure color being red, I am going to add a significant amount of red to that white. Okay, so this will be the last tint of a color before I get to my pure color, which is red. So I want it to be a little bit darker. So I'm gonna grab a glob. In fact, I'm gonna grab another glob, why not? All right, so I'm going to mix it really well and we'll see what we end up with. I'll test blob it. Could be a little bit darker. These are still a little bit similar now. I'm rinsing my paintbrush, blotting it, grabbing another blob, mixing it in. So I want to get this last one pretty close to red without being red. It looks like I am gradually getting there. That's looking good. Kind of want it still to be a little bit darker. I think I'm on glob number 3. All right, and I think this should do it. Still looking swirly and awesome, so I'm going to keep mixing. And I'm going to apply it with my flat. Remember, when you pull that flat out of the water, make sure that you dab off the extra water, get off that paintbrush drool before you pick up your color. Okay, so I am going to apply it. That looks great. So what I like about what I've created here is that all 4 of these tints of a color, so color plus white, they all look different from each other. So this would be perfect for my project where I need each tint to be gradually different from one another. Last thing I'm going to plug in is my pure color. Okay, so I'm just gonna go with whatever my actual color is. So my actual color, my pure color is red. I'm gonna pick that up on my paintbrush and apply it here. So you can see how dark this tint got by adding red to the white without making it pure red. So your goal with doing this is to watch your craftsmanship, make sure you're adding your pure color a little bit at a time, and as you go, you're going to want to just make sure that these are incrementally darker from one another. Okay, if you apply it and it looks too much the same, you're not going to have as much depth and dimension on your final project. It's going to make it look a little bit flat. So this is what I have for my tints chart. See if you can try it on your own.